Ontraport makes it easy to store and organize all of your important information just the way you like it. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to customize your contact records. Every bit of data in Ontraport needs a field to live in. For example, if you want to create a form to collect the data about which Hogwarts house people belong to, you'd create a Hogwarts house field so your data has somewhere to go. In Ontraport, you can add new fields by going to Contacts, opening Settings, and clicking Field Editor. Remember the contact detail screen? The field editor should look super familiar. It's organized exactly the same way. In the field editor, there are tabs, and those tabs have sections, and those sections have fields. I'm going to break each one of these down. Tabs are listed on the left side of your contact record. You'll see some default tabs such as contact information to help you get started. And each tab has its own sections, which are collections of fields that fit into a particular category. For example, the Contact Information tab contains sections related to, surprise, contact information. This can include things like name, email, phone number, stuff like that. The Purchases tab, on the other hand, stores data about your contact's purchases, like card details, invoice amounts, and order history. You can add new tabs by clicking the Add Tab button at the bottom of the list. By default, there are no fields or sections inside of a new tab. I'll talk about customizing these later. If you hover over or click on a tab, you'll see vertical arrows on the right side of the tab's name. You can rearrange your tabs by clicking and dragging these arrows around. And if you want to delete a tab, you need to empty it first by deleting or moving all of the fields and sections inside of it. Splendid. Let's move on to sections, which are the first element of organization within your tabs. Basically, sections are collections of fields that have some sort of general theme. Let's go back to the Contact Information tab example. In this tab, you'll see a section called Lead Information that contains data about a lead contact. Things like lead score and UTM variable tracking all fit the lead contact theme. If you're storing any sensitive information in here, you can also set user permissions for each section to make a group of fields invisible or uneditable to certain users. Click on the Permissions button and take a look at the list of roles. There are a few defaults which you can edit, or you can create your own. When you assign a new user to a role, they're going to automatically inherit all of that role's permissions. This is the best way to avoid awkward mishaps with your team. Plus, you'll ensure that your contact's private data doesn't end up floating around on the dark web somewhere. Everybody wins. All right, now that I've covered what's in a section, I'm going to show you how to create one. Click on the tab you want a new section to appear in and hit Add New Section in the upper right-hand corner. Then, you'll have a new blank section at the bottom of your current tab. Now, name your section. Since I'm trying to collect data about my contact's Hogwarts houses, I'll call my section Hogwarts Information, and we're done. Just like with tabs, move sections around by dragging the arrows in the upper left corner. You can reorder sections within a tab or move them to a different tab altogether. All right, let's take a quick breather and recap. So far, we've covered tabs and sections within tabs. Now I'm going to talk about fields, and this is where the magic all happens. Everything I've talked about so far is just for organization, but fields are where you actually store the data itself. For example, someone's first name would get stored in their first name field and their last name in the last name field. We put together a bunch of default fields like these because nobody has time to sit down and add them all manually. But they're not a one-size-fits-all for every business, especially if you need to store unique information like ice cream preferences or Hogwarts houses. This is where custom fields come in handy. Adding a new field is as easy as finding the tab or section you want to add it to. Then, simply click the Add Field button. You can format new fields in a lot of different ways. In fact, it's over 15, depending on the information that you're working with. I'll touch on each one while we're here. Checkbox fields are for data that have a positive or negative condition, such as yes or no. Say you're a vet, and you might have a checkbox for various pet vaccines. Rabies, yes or no? Let's hope that one's a yes. The country field is a drop-down of countries, and that's it. This one's extra simple. The date field shows you a calendar box so that you can select a specific date. For example, you can create a field based on the actual date of an animal's rabies vaccination. Then you've got date and time. This field is just like the date field we just talked about, but there's also a clock dial to set a time. A customer's vet appointment would be the perfect entry here. List selection works well for any fields where you can choose more than one item from a list. For example, if you're a fitness coach, you could use list selection to organize your clients' goals. Maybe they're interested in weight loss, greater strength, and increasing their energy levels. Inspiring stuff. Next up is long text. This is a text box field type that pops up as a larger box for longer entries. So if you wanted to include a free response question on a form, maybe something like, what made you choose to attend Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, this is the field type for you. Numeric is simply a field for whole numbers. Then there's price, which is a numeric field type specifically for tracking money. You might use this if you want to gather additional pricing data or you want statistical information about spending trends. Let's say you want to know how much you spend on handwritten notes for new customers. You can set up a campaign that figures your cost every time you send a note, then tracks it all with price fields like this. Another numeric field type is the phone option, and this one's for phone numbers. Big surprise, right? You can also take it up a notch with the SMS field type if you have contact numbers that can receive SMS messages. Now we're moving on to the state field type. It's another drop-down field to select states and regions in the US, Australia, Canada, and South Africa. Then there's color. This is a drop-down list where you can choose colors to represent certain information about your contacts. For example, you might set a yellow field for contacts in Hufflepuff or green for Slytherin. This field type is primarily used in card view, which I don't have time to go into depth about here, but it's a pretty sweet feature, so you should probably check out the video on card view to learn more about it. Just a few more field types to go. A couple of fields include drop-down options, but the actual drop-down field type is a bit different. A drop-down lists multiple values, but you can only select one. Back to the vet example. If you're asking your customers to select a type of pet they have from a list, they can only choose one animal. If you want them to be able to select multiple pet types, you'd be better off using a list selection instead. A drop-down field would be perfect for something like our Hogwarts house example. Nobody can be in Hufflepuff and Gryffindor at the same time, so you'd only want people to select one house from the list. Next up is the text field type, and I'm talking about your standard, old-fashioned alphanumeric text field. You can use this for names, serial numbers, celebrity crushes, or any other information you want to collect. Email is exactly what it sounds like, a field for email addresses. Keep in mind that Ontraport does store an email address by default for every contact, and it's already in there for you. But you may want to add additional email fields for work, school, or a spouse or a partner or something like that. The address field is another simple one. This is for a typical street or mailing address. I'm sure you're familiar with this concept. Last but not least, we've got the related object data field type. This field is for custom objects, which is absolutely a fabulous feature, but we're going to cover those in another video, so I'm not going to get into the specifics on it just yet. All you need to know right now is that this field type is here and it's awesome. Before we wrap up, let me impart a few words of organizational wisdom. Always try to create sections based on a general theme of fields. For example, let's say you're a fitness coach and you have a series of fields dedicated to the particular client goals. Those fields might be things like lifestyle goals, physical goals like strength or body fat percentage, and psychological goals like increased confidence. You can move all of these fields into a contact goals section to keep your contact records organized and quickly find what you need. As long as you follow that advice, you'll be able to store and track down the data you need whenever you need it without wanting to hurl your computer off a cliff. I know we just went through a ton of different field types, so good job for sticking it out. I'm going to cover just a few more details before you run off to create your new fields. Many of these field types include an option to select "This field is required." Checking this box means that every record in your account must contain something in this field when it's created, and you cannot create a record without it. Generally, we do not recommend marking fields as required unless you have a good reason to do so. Contacts are like gold, and you do not want to miss out on potential leads just because they won't tell you if they're in Slytherin or Ravenclaw. Remember, there's a difference between "this field is required" and actually marking a field as required on a form. The latter is a separate process that works even with non-required contact fields. One more thing, just like tabs and sections, you can move fields around. Hover over the left side of the field, click on the arrows, and drag to move it around until your records look exactly the way you want them to. Alright, that does it for customizing your contact records. In this video, you've learned all about the 3 different categories of record customizations: tabs, sections, and fields. Now that you've mastered this, you can tweak and organize the data in your records to your heart's content. Then you can easily find information about your contacts when you need it, whether it's their workout goals, Hogwarts house, or anything else you can dream up.